Dear students, in today's class, we are going to discuss some important environmental problems we are facing in our daily life. One such problem we are facing is what we call as biological magnification. So, biological magnification simply talks about the accumulation of harmful chemicals in our body through food chains. So, we have already studied what is food chain. So, and we know that human, in many of the cases, in many of the food chain, human is the highest, human occupies in the highest profile. So what biological magnification says is the accumulation of harmful chemicals in our body through food chain. That is what is called as biological magnification. So, in our daily life, we know that we use as different types of inorganic chemicals in various areas of life. For example, in the area of agriculture, we use some inorganic chemicals in the form of fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides, etc. So all these chemicals fall under the category of inorganic substances. And one of the main character of this group of substances is that they are all non-biodegradable things. Whatever chemicals we are applying in the field of agriculture, in the form of insecticides, pesticides, etc., all these are inorganic things. And once we have applied this into our field or over the crops, it is not necessary that all the portion of these chemicals are completely utilized by the plants or completely absorbed by the plants. Some portion of these chemicals remain unabsorbed and it may be remaining in the soil. It may be found attached over the body parts of these plants. So then what happens is, once it rains, all these chemicals get mixed with the water. And this water would be flowing down into the nearby water bodies. So these chemicals are washed down into the soil or into the water bodies, nearby water bodies, they will be arriving. Then after arriving in the water bodies, what is the effect? From the soil, it is absorbed by plants along with the water and minerals. If at all it is reaching into the water body, there are aquatic life. And they used to absorb water. So along with the absorption of water, these chemicals also get into their body. And we know that. So these chemicals are continuously, gradually getting accumulated into the body of aquatic organism. And we know that for our food, we used to depend on many of these organisms. For example, we used to catch a fish that is living in the water body and we consume it. And we have to understand that in their body there is traces of these chemicals. And it is this, their muscle we are consuming. So in that way, these chemicals would be ultimately entering into our body. But what is the problem with these chemicals? They are very stable. They cannot be digested by our enzymes. So what is the result? start depositing in our body tissues. And we know that these are very harmful things to our life. So as its concentration start increasing in our body may develop unwanted biological behavior, or these we call as it may lead to the development of some or other type of diseases, dangerous diseases. Mostly these diseases may be affecting, or mostly it is the nervous system that is going to affect, or it may be affecting the functioning of muscles. So like that, our body start developing various type of diseases. So here we have seen that these chemicals are reaching our body through the food chain only, because we are forming one of the member of a particular food chain that is operating in the water body. So through the food chain, these chemicals are progressively accumulated in each and every trophic level. So ultimately, trophic level is human. So the worst sufferer of this problem is human life. So each trophic level it is getting accumulated. And as such, maximum concentration of these chemicals get accumulated in our bodies only. And this progressive accumulation of harmful chemicals in the body of organism through food chain is called as a biological magnification. So that is one of the worst environmental problem presently we are facing. Now we will be looking into yet another environmental problem. So before that, you can see what is the concentration of these chemicals that are accumulating from the lower trophic level to the highest one. See, in the water, you see the concentration of these chemicals may be, say for example, it is 2 ppm, 2 parts per million. Then coming to the next level, from the water, these chemicals is getting entering into the planktons. That is the producer level, the first trophic level. And there we can see that it is about 5 ppm. Then in the next trophic level, the fishes which feeds on plankton forms the second trophic level, where you can see the concentration is further increasing. It has reached up to 200 ppm. Then again, the fish in turn is eaten by a bird. And in the body of this bird, it may reach even up to 1600 ppm. And see, if at all in this position we are going to eat fish, this amount of chemical is getting into our body. So it so happens sometimes the human may be eating this fish. As such, what happens? Whatever chemical has been accumulated in the body of the fish, that in turn enter into our own body. So like that, its concentration would be building up in our body, and once it has crossed a maximum level, our body start reacting badly, and it may lead to the development of many dangerous diseases. Ozone. So yet another environmental problem we are going to discuss is ozone layer and its depletion. So ozone as such is not a problem. Its depletion is a problem. It is the decline in the concentration of ozone. And it is found that this depletion is mainly because of many human activities. See, actually, what is ozone? What is ozone layer actually? So ozone, we know that it is a gas like any other gases. But this gas is normally very low in the lower atmosphere where we are living. But if at all we are going to the upper areas of atmosphere, when we reach the stratosphere, we can see that the concentration of this ozone is found to be very, very high. And it forms a thick layer around the surface of the earth. In the stratosphere, the ozone, we can see a thick layer of ozone. And in that area, the ozone is treated as a protective layer of the atmosphere. Whenever the ozone is there in the upper stratosphere, it is a protective layer. It can act as a protective layer for the lower atmosphere. And if at all we see the location of the ozone layer, at what part of the atmosphere ozone layer is present, and we can find that it is located in the lower portion of the stratosphere from approximately 15 to 35 kilometers above the earth. So that is the distance in which the ozone layer is situated from the surface of the earth, approximately 15 to 35 kilometers above the earth. And ozone is a molecule, a chemical molecule which is formed by 3 atoms of ozone. So, just like it is a triatomic molecule. It is a molecule that is made up of 3 different atoms of ozone. And as we have rightly said, ozone is deadly poisonous to the organism. When it is present on the lower atmosphere, it is highly dangerous for the life of the organism. Hence, whatever ozone is there in the lower atmosphere, we call it as bad ozone. उसको क्या बोलता है? What we will say? Bad ozone. Whenever the ozone which is present in the lower atmosphere, we tell as a bad ozone. So, though it is poisonous, at the higher levels of the atmosphere, ozone performs an essential function. So, in the lower atmosphere, it is highly dangerous. When we go to the upper atmosphere, this ozone layer is found to be performing very useful function for the atmosphere. That is, it shields the surface of the earth from the ultraviolet radiations from the sun. So we know that penetrating the stratosphere and other different layers of atmosphere, sunlight is penetrating down and it is reaching to the surface. And we, as a 10th class student, you might have studied in physics. What are the components of sunlight? It contains light rays of different wavelengths. So, based on the wavelength, we will be classifying them into different types. There are different compartments in the spectrum. And one is the visible light. Then at one end there is ultraviolet rays. Then at the other end there is infrared radiations. So we know that the most useful part of the spectrum is nothing but the visible light. On the other hand, infrared rays and ultraviolet rays we call as ionizing radiations. They are the ionizing radiations because through whichever objects they passes, they have the power to ionize the molecules, split up the molecules, and hence through whichever body it passes, it can cause dangerous effects. So, due to the presence of ozone layer, what happens is most part of the harmful radiations, like ultraviolet radiations, are being shielded off. It is filtered off when it passes through the ozone. That is the benefit of ozone layer. That is how the ozone layer is beneficial to the living world. So it prevents the entry of major part of the ultraviolet harmful radiations present in the sun. That is why we are much concerned about the ozone layer. Or rather, the ozone layer is acting as a blanket for us. Blanket, we know that it protects us from adverse conditions. Like that, the ozone layer is acting as a blanket and it gives us protection from the harmful effect of the ultraviolet radiations of the sun. So, then you say the UV radiation is highly damaging to the organisms. So, effect of the UV radiation is falling on the surface of the earth. What happens? This radiation is falling on the body of all the organisms. And if this happens, we know that it is highly ionizing. So, because of the ionizing nature, it is known to cause problems in the body of organisms like skin cancer, mutations, then damage to the eye, etc. Such dangerous effects it can have on the life of organisms, including human. For example, it can cause the dangerous effect of these UV radiations include skin cancer, mutations, damage to the eye, etc. Then ozone is formed by the action of UV radiation. How is ozone formed in the stratosphere? That is one of the major things we have to see. So, the ozone is formed by the action of UV radiation on oxygen. So, what is the action of the UV radiations on oxygen? The UV radiation split apart some molecules of oxygen into free oxygen. So, in the presence of UV radiations, what happens? Some of the oxygen molecule that is present in the upper atmosphere is splitted down, and this oxygen molecule is turned into oxygen atoms, free oxygen atoms. And these atoms, these free oxygen atoms, then combine with the molecular oxygen to form ozone. So, there are other molecules of oxygen. Only some portion, some of the oxygen molecules are getting split into free oxygen. So, this free oxygen is having the ability to combine with the other oxygen molecule, so that then one oxygen atom further combines with a molecule of oxygen. It results in a combination of three oxygen that we call as ozone. So, oxygen in the presence of UV, it is split down into two oxygen atoms, and out of these oxygen atoms are capable of combining with the oxygen molecule, so as to form O3 for the ozone. See here, you can see a slide that very well illustrates what happens to the UV radiations that are present in the sunlight. So here there is a sun, and from that sunlight is crossing through the stratosphere. So here at a particular part of the stratosphere, what is there? Ozone layer is there. So see the change that is happening to the UV radiations that is present in the sun when it passes down to the stratosphere. See, there are different variants of UV, UVA, UVB, UVC. So, out of this UVB and UVC is found to have much effect on the life of organisms. See, what happens to these UVB and UVC? See, once it crosses through the stratosphere, what happens? The intensity of UVB is very, very minimized, and UVC is almost nil. So only this harmless portion of the UV may be reaching to the surface of the earth. So like that, the stratospheric ozone layer is acting as a very efficient filter of the UV radiations. And once the sunlight passes through the stratospheric ozone, what happens? Most of the dangerous components of the sunlight is filtered off or shielded off. So that is how the ozone layer is acting as a protective layer for our then. So that is about ozone layer. Next is another environmental problem we are facing, that we call as the problem that is arising out of garbage. So garbage is a very commonly talked about term. So garbage, as you know, it is nothing but all those solid waste that is generating out of our daily life. Together we call as garbage. So in the beginning of this chapter itself, we have said about these waste materials. So many different types of waste materials we are going into our surrounding. So out of that, the solid form of waste material alone is referred as garbage. And you may be reading many articles and many newses regarding the accumulation of garbage in major cities and towns. And the people what are the problems which are faced by the people living there due to the accumulation of these garbage. And moreover, nowadays we are facing much problem to find out efficient means for the disposal of these garbage. And whenever this garbage accumulates, we are going to face one or other problems, and it is having direct or indirect effect on our own health. So that is why we are worried about the accumulation of garbage. So all these leftover solid waste constitute what we call as garbage. In our experience, many of these waste materials disappear after some time, whereas others will remain in our surrounding without any change indefinitely. Out of these solid waste, we have already seen that some of the solid waste disappear, and that we call as biodegradable. And some others would be remaining without any change in our surrounding only, and that we call as non-biodegradable waste. Okay, non-biodegradable garbage. And those non-biodegradable part of the garbage may become harmful to various members of the ecosystem. This is going to affect the life of various organisms of the ecosystem in one way or other. And how do this garbage is going to affect the life of organisms? So they may cause mechanical injury. Sometimes while we are if at all this garbage is found present on the pathway we are walking. Suppose garbage, for example, these glass pieces or tin sheets are there. It may come in contact with our body and it may cause mechanical injury. Then it reduces soil quality. Many of the components of the garbage is found to reduce the quality of the soil. See, for example, polythene sheets. So once the polythene sheets are found spread on the ground, what is the problem? It may not permit the water to percolate down, so that it may reduce the water holding capacity of the soil. That is another dangerous effect of the accumulation of solid waste. Then it prevents the percolation of water into the soil. As we have rightly said, whenever polythene is accumulating over the soil surface, it prevents the downward flow of water. Then the health problems to cattle. Even if these plastic and other things are eaten by cattle, what happens? They may get blocked in their digestive system, and it may cause dangerous problems to the life of the cattle. Then, and other wild animals. Even you might have read, you may be reading some of the articles and the news that such amount of garbage or plastic is found to be present in the dead dolphin. like that. Even in the marine organism also, these garbage poses problem, because wherever during rain, what happens? This garbage is washed away into the ocean, and in the ocean there are so many marine organisms. So it can enter into their body, and there it can cause health problems to these organisms. Then, how can we escape from the, or rather, how we can reduce the problem caused by these garbage? And there are many suggestive methods to dispose of garbage. And studies reveal that many of the methods we are already using is not much efficient in degrading these waste or changing these waste into harmless substances. Most of these methods we found that inefficient in disposing of these waste. Even then, some relief, if at all we are going for some of these techniques, we can get some relief from this. And these include recycling, reuse, repurposing, refuse, incineration, segregation, etc. These are some of the suggestive methods. What are these? Recycling, reuse. See, for example, we are bringing so many polythene bags after marketing, and we will be dumping all these bags in the home. Then again, the next day we are all going to the markets, and we are going to get another set of these bags. So instead of that, whatever bags we are already having can be reused. We can take it again, take it and go to the market and bring the things. So that way we can reuse it. Then repurposing is yet another effective way of handling these garbage. See, for example, some broken buckets are there in our home. So wherever some small cracks are there, what we will do? We will throw it away. In that place, if we cut that broken part, the rest of the part can be used, very well used as a pot for growing plants, or it can be used as a container for growing vegetable plants, like that. In that way we can repurpose it. The original purpose of the bucket is to keep water. So in that vessel we can use for another purpose. That we call as repurposing. Then refuse. So if at all, when we go to markets, the shopkeeper is putting the things in a polythene bag, and we as an educated person, we know the impact of the polythene bag. So we can refuse. We can tell him, if at all you give it in a paper package, that is well and good. Like that we can refuse it. Then incineration, yet another way. So incineration is the controlled burning. In incinerators, we are whatever we are using is we are doing is controlled burning of the garbage. So in we know that burning of the garbage normally releases many poisonous gases. But another thing, another little benefit we are getting is by incineration we can at least reduce the bulk of the garbage. The volume can be highly reduced if at all we are going for incineration. Then another is segregation, separating out, or it can be sorted out. Whatever garbage we are having, we can sort it out into biodegradable, non-biodegradable, reusable, like that we can segregate it. And what is the benefit of biodegradable one? If the biodegradable components we can use for composting purpose. The recyclable one we can send to recycling units, and reusable we can use it once again. If at all we are instead of putting all together in a single pitch, if at all we are separating it, and we can see that as a step for this segregation in railway stations and in other public places, there are different bins we can see red colored or this blue colored, green colored picture. So there it is written red color is for water, the paper, polythene, all these things. Green one is meant for decomposable things. Like that, separate bins we can see kept in these public places. So it is for segregating these garbage. And what is the major reasons? What leads to the ever increasing generation of this garbage? So the finger, we have to point our finger only towards our own activity. See, our lifestyle has changed from the past. And in olden times, we used in parties and other functions, we used to serve food on leaves. But nowadays, that has changed. We use disposable plates. Once it is used, we would be throwing out into the outside, and there it gets deposited. So that way, our lifestyle has changed. So improvement in our lifestyle have resulted in greater amount of waste material generation. Change in our attitude also have a role to play in this particular problem. The change in our attitude also have a role to play. With more and more things we use becoming disposable. As a result of the change in our attitude, whatever things, whichever majority of the things we are using in our present day life has turned to disposable one. Once we have one time use only. Even you can see syringes. Nowadays, due to various reasons, to take injection we are using disposable syringe only. So that add more bulk to the garbage. So in olden times, a single syringe would be used, and once it is used, it is sterilized, and again it will be used. But there are so many limitations nowadays. Presently, we are in the midst of so many diseases, so that we cannot avoid. We have to go for a disposable syringe. So like that, the change in lifestyle and attitude towards life also is yet another reason for ever increasing generation of this garbage. See, nowadays what we are using for writing, ballpoint pen. So in older generation, if at all you ask, they used to use a fountain pen. So once the ink is lost, again we will fill it and write with the same pen. Nowadays it is not like that. So many these ballpoint pens we are using, and once it is over, we will be throwing it away. So that also going to add to the bulk of the garbage. So change in our lifestyle. Then changes in packaging have resulted in much of our waste becoming non-biodegradable. Packaging material, whatever packaging material we are using, that also have changed. Even you say some tin foils we use to pack food materials, ready to eat food materials, to package tin foils we are using. Even polythene bags. Even nowadays we know that at the morning itself milk vendors are coming with the milk in plastic packets. So that is a change in our life. So like that, changes in packaging have resulted in generation of more and more biodegradable waste. So this is one of the burning environmental issue we are facing in the present day. So here we can see the condition. This is a situation in a town area. A lot many garbage is getting deposited there. So here, as I have rightly said, in order to reduce the impact of the garbage, we can go for segregating them. So here, differently colored bins are kept in a town area where the waste materials, travelers who are passing by, if at all they have some waste material, they can keep them separately, green colored, red colored, blue colored one. So that tells which type of waste is to be deposited here. So accordingly we can dispose of it without much disturbance. So here this is a diagram showing the use of the biodegradable garbage for the making of composts. Biodegradable waste, if it will be separate and it is sent to, there are so many units working in different parts of our country. If it will be sent this biodegradable waste, that can be very reproductively used for generation of compost. So like that, so many options are there with us in handling the garbage.